Today I'm going to show you how you create virtual private cloud in AWS public cloud. By default, whenever we launching our EC2 instance, we launching in default public cloud. So our resources is not separated with other customer in AWS. They are also launching their EC2 instance same subnet. So I'm going to create our virtual private cloud where we separate our resources from each other customers. So we have to create VPC. VPC is very easy to create. Inside VPC, we have to create two types of subnet. Public subnet basically is accessible from internet, but private subnet is not accessible from internet because whenever we create public subnet, we associate public IP. But in private subnet, we don't associate public IP. So that's why private subnet cannot access internet. So we only access public subnet for like web server. We launching web server. Web server is accessible for public subnet. So first of all, we have to create VPC. So I have login our is I am user in browser. You can also log in your I am user in browser. So we have to create first VPC. VPC create. So go to your AWS console and select the region. I am selecting my region in Mumbai because I want to launch in this region. So type here VPC. By default, AWS has a our default VPC. So we have to delete. I don't want to use by default this VPC. I'm going to delete this VPC. Select action, delete the VPC. This is attached internet gateway and subnet. I don't want to, so I delete this also. If you want to delete, copy this and type this, then delete. So by default AWS VPC we have to delete. Then we have to create our custom VPC. Create the VPC. I'm going to create only VPC. So name your VPC. I'm going to name tech VPC. This is our VPC. Then provide network address. So I'm going to use class A private network. You can only use only private networks, class A, class B, and class C. So I'm going to use class A private network 10.10.0.0/16. This is our network for virtual private cloud. Now create the VPC. So we created the VPC. There is our IPv4 private address. Now go to your subnet because we have to create subnet also. We can also choose where we want to launch this subnet, which availability zone. So there is already, but it's not because it's deleted. So I have to refresh this page and see no subnet found because we already deleted the default subnet. We have to create our custom subnet. So click here, create, select your VPC. We created this VPC, tag VPC, and type. So we have to create two types of subnet. You can see public subnet, that subnet is directly accessible through internet, but private subnet cannot be accessible through internet. So here go name this public subnet. I name this public subnet. So we have in three availability zone in Mumbai region. So I selected first availability zone. There is first availability zone. This is public subnet, but we have to also configure private subnet in this availability zone. Our class A network. So we subnetted. Now we want to subnet also 10.10 I also use 10.10.10 and slash dot 0/24. So this is our network, or this is our subnet now before this public subnet. Now create this subnet here. This is our public subnet where we access the internet. I'm also creating private subnet. Same availability zone. Type here private private subnet and select the same availability zone, same, and select the IP 10.10. I'm going to give 20.0/24 for my private subnet and create this subnet. Now you refresh this page or see there is two subnet. Wait for it take few seconds to show both subnet. Uh, to VPC, then type see there. This is a private subnet, this is a public subnet, but it is a same availability zone. You can see, but we have to create another public and private subnet because I want to create for another location like this. In first availability zone, we have created public subnet and private subnet, but I want to use in second availability zone because we have to create fault tolerance. Why fault tolerance? Because this availability zone is down, so our resources can run this availability zone also. So we have to create same two type of subnet in second availability zone, public subnet and private subnet. So same, go to create subnet, type and type public because we have to also give the public subnet hyphen B for my second availability zone. Select the second availability zone, this, and give this IP 10.10.30.0/24. So create the subnet and create it. You can see now we have to create private subnet also. Select your VPC, type private hyphen subnet hyphen B for second availability zone. Select the same availability zone B and give the network. We want to give 10.10.40.0/24. Create it. Then you have to refresh. Now you can see public subnet, public subnet. Up now we have to assign public IP. So we have to click and go to action and edit subnet settings. We want to give public IP because it is access from internet. So whenever we creating, it automatically give the public IP. So you have to select this. Same we have to create for this public subnet. Go to action, edit the subnet settings and enable auto assign public IP address. Now, so it's our VPC, or in my VPC there is a four subnet. One is a public subnet and private subnet for first availability zone, and second is the public subnet B and private subnet B for second availability zone. Now we have to go to launch EC2 instance, but I'm showing because first of all we have to launch EC2 instance, then I have to show you something very important because this directly cannot connect to the internet. We have to create internet gateway also. We have to create route table and associate the subnet so they can communicate. So go to first of all we have to go to EC2 instance where we launch our EC2 machine. Now I'm going to launch instance, giving this machine, I give this public server because it is accessible from internet. Launching AWS Linux T2 micro free trial eligible. Now we have to create key pair. I name this key pair public and download. So up we have to edit this network setting. See there we have to our VPC and this is public subnet B. I want to launch in public subnet availability zone A. You can see here AP South hyphen 1A in first, or you can see also it's unable. If select private subnet, then its auto assigned public IP is disabled. So if whenever you launching in private subnet, it cannot give the public IP. So I'm going to select public subnet. Now we have to create security group. Name this security group because we need it. I name this public firewall. So it is SSS anywhere because it's from accessible from internet. So it's totally fine. And you can also I can add the rule for HTTP because we are launching the web server and source from anywhere and and launch the instance. Now instance is launched. Now I can see there is a public IP. Wait for go to network. There is a public IP, but we cannot access because if it's not connected to the internet because we have to configure internet gateway and route table because we created our custom VPC. So we have to create our internet gateway. It's like in CCNA we created VLANs, but they are not communicating and not going to internet. We have to create inter-VLAN routing. Same here. We have to create internet gateway to access the public instance from public subnet to access internet. We have to create route table to connect our instance from anywhere from. So I have to create it. First of all, I'm going to show you we cannot access this instance because we cannot created any internet gateway and connected to associate our VPC. We have to also attach to our VPC. Wait for a few seconds because it's already checking the status. We have to wait. Now you check is past the status check. Now we have to connect from here. Then we going to connect, but it's not going to connect. You can see it's established the connection and it's not going to connect. You can see fail the to connect your instance. So if you want to connect, go to your VPC. So we have to go to our VPC, and first of all we have to create internet gateway because we have assigned the public IP, but they are not connected to my VPC. So we have to create internet gateway fit and then attach to our VPC. So I'm going to create internet gateway. Create internet gateway. Name this like my internet. Internet. I name this. So create it. Then I have to attach this internet gateway to my VPC. You can see its details. So select this and go to action attached to the BPC. Select here your BPC. This is my BPC, tech BPC and attached. But it's not going to work. You can see here why because we are not give routing. I'm going to connect. It's not going to work. I was just showing you. Just creating the internet gateway is not enough. We have to create routing also. So go to your route table, its default route table. You cannot delete this route table. So we have to create two route table for public subnet and for private subnet. Go to create route table. Give the route table name public route and select your VPC. Create the route table. Now I have to also create for private subnet. Private route name. Select your VPC, create the route table and select your route table. So go to your public route table. Now we have to create a first of all route. See here, it's only know that your local network, not from internet. So it's not accessible from internet. So edit route, add the route where from. I want to access from everywhere because it's also accessible for web server, so anyone can access. So I'm going to give from anywhere, and there is many types of settings. So I have to attach internet gateway. We have created. Select your internet gateway. I created my internet. Now save the change. But it's still not going to work because we does not attach the subnet. So attach only public subnet. So click here, edit the subnet association because it is the public route. So I created public subnet and select this public subnet and save the changes. Now I'm going to access our EC2 machine. Select connect, then connect. Now we are waiting. Now you can check here. So whenever we created virtual private cloud, we have to create subnet, private and public, and then we have to create internet gateway and attach to your VPC. Then we have to also create route table and attach to your attach subnet into your route table and give access from anywhere. If this server or this subnet is public subnet. Now you can say sudo su and we have to configure HTTP server. I'm going to install Apache web server HTTP D and then press Y. I'm going to install. Wait for. So it's totally working. Then I have to start the server system CTL start HTTP D and then I have to create my first web server in AWS cloud in var HTML index. So index.html. Now we can access from internet, but we have to check here. There is no DNS. Whenever you created VPC, there is not public DNS available for you. So you have to access from by public IP. Now I'm going to here and paste my public IP. You can see here my first web server, because public DNS is not available for this your custom VPC. So you have to use your registered domain name service. Now this is our instance for public subnet. Now we are going to launch EC2 instance in our private subnet, and private subnet EC2 instance and cannot accessible from internet. So we have to access from this EC2 machine. So we have to use same many things, like we have to first of all we have to launch instance in private subnet. Go here, launch instance, type the name. I type this name private subnet. Now this is AWS Linux machine. Retire. Select the same key pair I created. This public key pair. You can select this key pair. You can create a new one, but I selected this public key pair. It's totally fine. Go to your VPC. We have to launch in private subnet. This is my public subnet in availability zone A, or this is my private subnet in public in availability zone A. I selected private subnet. You can see here there is no public IP because it's private subnet. Private subnet cannot accessible from internet. Now we have to name the security. Give this name private firewall. Private firewall. SSH. Now I, because it's not accessible from internet, so we don't allow from anywhere. We have to allow from custom. So select here, go to add CDIR and select your firewall, public firewall. When we created EC2 instance launch in public subnet, we created the security group is named public firewall. So we have to associate this. So this private EC2 instance accessible from this public EC2 instance. So we have to select this public firewall. Now launch your instance, refresh the page, and you can see here there is no public IP, only private IP. So it's not accessible from internet, but it can accessible from your public server from this machine. So we have to access first public server and public EC2 instance. This instance is accessible from internet. Its resources available for publicly, but the private subnet resources you are not allowing your internet to accessible. So we have to created our EC2 instance where we cannot do not want to anyone access from publicly. So we launch into private subnet. Then whenever we want to access the private subnet instance, we have to access from our public subnet instance. So how can we access from here? So first of all, we have to create a password file. How can we create password file? It's very easy. First of you name give vim and name this file name like linux.pem because its password form is here. Now the file you downloaded. So you file you downloaded the pem password. Go to your download public. Open this in Notepad and copy this whole. So I have copied this and put it. Go to your bin and paste here and save it is. Now confirm this from cat command linux.pen. Now you can see this. So this is the file where your password clear. This is skin also. So how do we access? Type here ssh and ec2 hyphen user at the rate and your public your private IP for private subnet. So private subnet IP this, but we have to check this status also first. So refresh this, check for status is running. So private subnet EC2 instance, copy this IP, private IP, and go to your EC2 instance server, paste here, then type hyphen I and the Linux pen, enter. So you are confirm this, type yes and enter. We have to give permission. I forget because we need to give permission. So clear this. First of all, we have to give permission. So how we give permission in Linux using chmod, and we give permission like 400 and the file name is Linux ban, and then further type this and enter. Now you can see you have to in Linux you have to give read permission. There is no permission, so that's why they saying error. Now I can see check for IP first. ifconfig. This is the machine where we give this IP 10.10.21. This is the private subnet IP. So it's not accessible from internet. It's only for private. So no any public accessible. So we have to launch this private subnet instance only for our organization or company purpose where we save our uh, security credentials, sensitive asset of company. So we don't want to anyone can access this server. So we have launched private subnet. Now you can see this is the first part of our virtual private cloud. But if you want to give this machine internet, we have to give create for net gateway, provide internet and attach to your private subnet. So thank you guys. This is our virtual private cloud.